We are back in the Lighthouse Diary, and today the Queen has returned to her palace, and yeah, we're just hanging out together, listening to music together, and yeah, it doesn't seem to be bringing her mood down or anything like that, so I'm thinking that my music choice has definitely improved. And speaking of which, if you haven't been already, if you haven't been able to, if you, excuse me, if you weren't able to tell by now, today's entry is about music and such, and I guess where I stand now, what my standard is per se, when I go about listening and finding stuff that I like, or or discovering what I like per se. So, yeah, let's get into it. I guess I'm going to be going into my criteria. There's going to be some yays and some nays. So I guess let's just start with the nays. So, with the nays, I prefer for the music that I listen to not to be so on the nose. Another one is I prefer my music not to be super corny, super predictable, what do you call it? Super forced, if that makes sense. So, that goes with the intention, the vibe, the message, yeah, and even, the soundscape, if that makes sense. If I can tell something is being pushed to the point that the point is no longer, actually, yeah, if something is being pushed to the point that the point is completely missed, I'm not going to be into it. Another nay that I have discovered this week for me is if it's, how do I say this in the most PC way possible? Is that the word? Is that the term that I'm going for? How can I say this in the least offensive way? By, internet standards, if you know what I mean. I'm realizing that if a song, or hell, like even a full-on album, is really, I guess it kind of coincides with what I just explained earlier. If it's kind of, let's put it this way, if it's a pushing not so constructive habits, or not so lighthearted behaviors and concepts, that's something that I need to kind of step back from. Oh, and darker, murky mentalities, that's something I gotta step away from. So give you a general sense of yeah, what I don't look for in music that I would like to enjoy. But yeah, let's talk about, yeah, I think we've covered all of the nays, and now we're going to go into all the yays. the stuff that I am looking for. Um, yeah, this I kind of just discovered uh, how to articulate specifically what I'm looking for. So, I guess, how do I want to say it? Hmm. This is kind of hard. I guess, songs and albums that cover topics kind of in an implied or softcore kind of way, so to speak. That's like, that's been like a huge thing for me. So I'm okay with, addressing like mushy gushy kind of stuff, but I don't want it to be too intense. Uh, so just have the subject matter be implied because let's just say that I am pretty sensitive to certain phrases and choice of words, so I don't know if that's clear or not, but yeah. I mean, I wouldn't mind going into, uh, I guess you could say, oh, there's such a cute dog out there. Sorry, I got distracted. I wouldn't mind a more serious subject matter as long as it's alluded to and not uh, and it's kind of how do I say it? I'm trying not to make this a nay, you know what I mean? I want like any serious subject matter to be alluded to or kind of made metaphors for. Um, I guess similarly to what I'm trying to do with my entries is that the songs or the albums cover, the heart of the matter, but not the not too many details in how messy it is, assuming that the listener already knows how messy that subject matter is, if you catch where I'm coming from. That might have sounded a little repetitive, but I just needed to clarify a little bit. So that's kind of a big thing for me. Yeah, the kind of uh, I guess you could say illustrative language where you have a feeling for what's going on, but you don't need to know everything because you already know enough, if that makes sense. So, yeah, there you go. Um, however, that doesn't go without saying that I don't like vulnerability in music. In fact, it's what I love and what I look for. So I like to have a nice balance between vulnerability, but focusing it on the feeling itself without giving off a sense of rumination, I guess. So I guess like another nay got into there, but so yeah, the stuff that along the serious lines where, you're able to face um, more serious things, but without uh, personalizing it. Yeah, because I'm trying to get into that habit, just in everyday life. So if I have music that kind of facilitates that kind of observation of what's happening instead of, uh, yeah, personalizing it, then I guess that could really help with my mental functioning and health and that kind of thing. Yeah, I guess off of like the subject matter and like the vulnerability, I guess I'm gonna go into styling, I guess. So I know this is kind of vague, but I my mind and my I guess you could say like my body, my heart kind of craves something that I know it sounds cliche and it's super unclear, but my being craves something that's refreshing. So, what does refreshing mean to me, you might ask? Again, not to sound so repetitive or predictable or that kind of thing, but I guess you could say instrumental choices that you wouldn't uh, usually hear. I know that's kind of a boring way to explain it. So, yeah, I guess to give an example. So, if I don't usually hear this kind of beat with this kind of wind instrument, for example, or I don't hear or I don't usually hear like this kind of melody with this kind of sound effect, if that makes sense, you know? Uh, yeah, and a huge example of that is Gorillaz. Yeah. Uh, yeah, and I could go on and on and on about who else I'm venturing into and have been, subscribed to, so to speak. So there's that. Uh, so I guess in terms of yays, to summarize, uh, softcore vulnerability and unusual combinations, I guess, in terms of the instruments and that kind of thing. Oh yeah, and very illustrative language that isn't so personalized, just to make it a little more concise, because I'm noticing that my nays are kind of more concise than my yays. Is there anything else in terms of my yays? Uh, I guess this one's kind of obvious, but something that is easy on the ears. So, I know it's kind of a rude thing to say, but I'm very sensitive to tone of voice, like not even just in speaking sense, but also, in singing sense. So there's that. I can't tolerate all kinds of tones. I know it sounds really bitchy of me, but it's true. I kind of just accept that about myself. Uh, Obviously, in terms of singers and bands and that kind of thing, bands that have a lead singer anyway, or singers, uh, yeah, it's nice to have a very clear, crisp sounding voice or voices, so that's what I look for in terms of style. Um, it really helps if the voices that are being used are also very rich. So I'm not necessarily looking for loud and belting all the time. However, if I'm in the mood for hearing belting, I'm more of a I lean more towards singers and bands that don't necessarily belt, but project their notes effectively. So they know how to make a graceful crescendo, if that makes sense. And that doesn't just go for the vocalist, that also goes for the instrumentals as well. Like they know how to play with volume in a really suave and what do you call it? Like they know how to manipulate volume in such a way that they can grab like your attention and maintain that attention, if that makes sense. Yeah, if you probably can't tell by now, I'm actually very, very picky with what I listen to, or I try to be, because so many specifications that I have, as you can already tell. What else? Is there anything else? Yeah, I guess from the outside, if someone were to see me and how I enjoy music, the usual feedback would be like, oh yeah, it has to be lit for Kaylee to like it. And yeah, to a degree, that's true. Sometimes I do have that mood, but I also have the mood where it's just like I can I can sit down alone with, well, not necessarily alone, but I can sit down like inside of a house, uh, or I could be walking along city streets. I could be on a bus, on a train, and I could just be hearing how an artist or a band is emoting, portraying emotion in their own way, and I can still appreciate that too. But you can still, yeah, it'd be nice also. Yeah, it's a bonus for me if, yeah, if the artist or the band in question doesn't automatically equate high tempo with happiness and slower or like lower tempo with more serious songs. Like they know how to play with tempo and lyricism and subject matter. So it's not such an obvious pattern in their songs, if that makes sense. So I guess kind of tying into instrumentation and having, this kind of beat that you don't usually hear with this kind of string instrument or wind instrument or, sound effect, etc., etc. Hope that makes sense. What else do I look for? I guess you could say manipulation of acoustics. I want it to feel like, yeah, I don't always have to feel like, oh, this is like a club kind of song. Oh, this is like a perfectly synthesized studio masterpiece. I kind of like, I kind of prefer when artists and bands and like the producers work together in such a way that it feels like when I'm listening to something, the ceiling has like, sounds super cheesy, but the ceiling has like been removed from the house, so to speak. I don't know how to describe it. Like, but yeah, I like when acoustics are manipulated to the point that, yeah, you're just not in a physical setting. It doesn't feel like you're in a physical setting. It just feels like, um, you're somewhere that feels familiar, but you can't pinpoint all at the same time. I don't know how to explain it. But yeah. This was probably confusing and all over the place, but yeah, that seems to be my standard for what I look for in good music as opposed to not so pleasant music. So yeah, and this has been kind of this has sort of been one of my main focuses, simply because I don't know, when it's December, no, not even, when it's September even, I start to get excited about the new year. And am I about to cough? No, false alarm. Yeah, and I came across this video about how to prepare for the new year, and oh, I burped, never mind. And yeah, this girl, she was talking about how you can get some songs that you haven't listened to before and have like a New Year's playlist. And I thought that was super cool, because the thing was that that was something that I was already doing, but not just specifically for the new year, but just in general. I like to try to explore different sounds and perspectives as much as I possibly can, if I'm not, focused on meditating and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I guess this is sort of my New Year's prep episode, sort of. Yeah. I guess I want to ask you, like, what do you like, as, yeah, in contrast to what you don't like when it comes to music that you listen to? I'm open to, recommendations and suggestions and ideas as usual. And yeah. I'm sleepy today. Well, sleepy-ish, which makes sense because I usually get sleepy when and then uh, I usually get sleepy when there's a blanket of white snow anyway, so it's not even surprising. So yeah, as usual, this is the Lighthouse Diary. Thank you for listening. Stay safe, stay cozy, stay sincere to your gorgeous self. And I'll see you in the next one. And last but not least, can I hit the note? Mind you, it's not a specific note. Two notes, right? Spice it up a little bit. All right. And saying sayonara to the queen of this house.